Hi, this is Roger. Thanks for dropping by. I'll turn some noise off. Not for long though. It's quite a warm day out today, so the kit is all on. And of course it's sucking in warm air. Peace. Right. I've sorted out all my emails finally. I've ended up with one email I created to try and replace something that was locked, and that one also got locked, but there's nothing in it and I haven't used it anywhere, so I don't care. My original one that I'm locked out of, I'm still disappointed with because that's got all my contacts in, but those will get replaced as and when people get in touch with me, you know. Hopefully it'll be okay. And even though that one is not usable on my laptop, for some reason I can still get in there on my phone. So I've lost very little overall, and I've now changed everywhere that I need to change with new usernames. I don't need to change passwords and everything. So the job's done. I don't need to worry about it anymore. I've let the two Orchid societies know. They've updated their records. So I'm there. And sorry about no video yesterday. That should have been viewers' Orchid question time, but there weren't any, so it wouldn't have been anyway. And I just decided to finish off everything to do with, you know, that problem and get it done finally. Didn't do it all at once. I'd have probably been dribbling and sat in the garden with my feet in the air or something stupid, i.e. gone crazy. What I wanted to show you was, because they're now both open, the last one we had, when we had this one in bloom, it didn't have the pink tinge. It was virtually white, and the pink tinge is slightly fading, but it's there. I mean, I suspect the camera's going to show that almost white, but this one does actually belong to somebody else now, so I don't know why I'm worried about it. But this is I've forgotten which way round it is now. This is Griffithianum crossed with Farmeri. This is Farmeri crossed with Griffithianum, and it's just opened its first spike today. That is white, also slightly smaller. Yeah, I suppose what I could do is put them together. Can I get them in the same shot? I might be able to. I doubt it though, because this one's quite pendulous, and it's going to start knocking stuff over. But they're both in shot now. I think you can see that the blooms on here are larger. Mind you, these have only just opened. They're not fully open yet, but these are larger. They've got a deeper yellow, but there again, those may get deeper as they've been open a while, and that's definitely got a pink tinge, and that one hasn't. So which way round the cross does make a difference. There will always, or virtually always, across the board be a dominance with the seed parent, the one that has the pod and produces the seed. The pollen parent is less dominant. That's the way it normally works. You do get exceptions sometimes where the pollen parent becomes not only quite dominant but overpowers, but it depends on how different they are. But yeah, this is just looking quite nice up here now. It's actually, there's two spikes open. The third one, well, it'll only be a day or two behind, so all three will be open together, and I've adjusted them so that they don't sort of cross over, and they will all be visible at the same time, albeit tucked up under a leaf in some cases. But yeah, so that's Farmeri crossed with Griffithianum. The other one is Griffithianum crossed with Farmeri. I actually wrote a label. I don't remember doing that. Obviously in one of my label moods, which I don't get very often. That's about all that's new out here, I must admit. The Hercoglossum is pushing more and more blooms open all the time, but it's strange. It gets to the point where it's got so many blooms that a few more spikes opening don't show. they just don't show. I don't know which is the best view of that. Probably from about here. because the main cluster of blooms, if I can, I'll have to unhook it to twist it, won't I? I think the main cluster of blooms is there. So that's probably about the best view, isn't it? I've got to make a decision soon. Which one do I send off to the virtual competition in Bournemouth? Is it going to be this one? It's quite a specimen. I doubt if there'll be anybody else that's got one this big. But then I've had it a long time. You know, it's a very mature plant. And I think a lot of people make the one, it's not necessarily a mistake because it doesn't really do the plant any harm, but I think a lot of people think of Dendrobium hercoglossum as a winter rester, and as such they stop feeding, you know, as it heads in towards winter, and then during the winter they rest it. The problem with that is the canes won't grow to their full size because it carries on, the way I grow it, it carries on growing right through the winter and all through the next year, which is why my canes are this long. And I know one other person that's got one that actually brought it along on the competition tables, and all the canes were half that size. It was a nice plant, and actually it was quite nice because it was quite compact. But that person actually rested it through the winter, so stalled the canes basically. Well, it's either going to be that one or obviously it's going to be this one. So those are the only two that I've got that are looking good enough to go off. This one is looking nice, but it is still, as far as a competition is concerned, this is a young plant. Of course, and the other one I could do that I keep forgetting is this one up here. Because you're only allowed to send one photo, and most people are being expected to send a photo of their blooms, and there aren't many people get an apple blossom with 6 blooms open. A lot of people get 2, 3, sometimes 4, but I've managed to get 6 this time, which for this plant is quite good. I don't think I've ever seen an apple blossom with more than 6 blooms. And you don't see it with 6 very often. So maybe that one. I don't know. Haven't made my mind up, but I am only allowed 1. I mean, in theory, that one could go in. That does make a very nice photo because the blooms are clustered but sort of staggered to give the picture some depth. And as I haven't got to worry about the plant, but in this case I could still get the plant in the shot, albeit possibly slightly blurred in the background. Anyway, I do have a couple of choices. Could even send that one in, couldn't I? More and more choices the more I look. But I'll have to make my mind up at some point. Knowing the way they look at things, I think it'll be a case of the hercoglossum's probably the one they would think the most of, but then, you know, it's not a good shape to be able to get a picture of. And with that one, I would have to try and capture the whole plant. It wouldn't be any good just taking a photo of one of the bloom clusters. That wouldn't do it justice. Anyway, I shall see. So this is another one. This would be a whole plant picture, because it'll fit in one shot, yeah, with the leaves at the top and the mount and all the pendulous spikes. That would look good as a photo, irrespective of whether it's a show winner. It would make a nice photo. So a few decisions to make, but there's not much else going on. It's just a matter of stuff's growing basically. And what I've got to do now, because I was lazy yesterday, I did water my mounts. I haven't watered anything else out here, and today I need to do the mounts again. I can't afford to go 2 days with this warm weather like this. So today I'm just going to whiz around with the sprayer. They're due for a flush today anyway, so and with this heat I can get away with the sprayer. You know, it'll dry. So we'll get that done, and tomorrow I think later on today I'm going to sit down with my notes and go through all my dates. Now this won't affect mounts, but it could affect some pots. It's a matter of when did they last get potted first, and secondly, did they get moss put in there? In which case, you know, they might be due for a refresh of the media, which would be a kitchen time, obviously. But that's yet to be decided. haven't made my mind up yet. Oh, and you'll be very pleased to hear that Dracula Bella no longer has a spike. Some clumsy oaf broke it. I didn't break the spike, I broke the bud off. Luckily there's another one there and another one there, so we have got more spikes coming, but I couldn't believe it. I don't remember doing it, but I just remember when I picked it up to water it last time, I very carefully lifted it out and looked at the spike and I thought the bud's gone. So at some point I'd knocked it off, I just don't remember when. So yeah, that would have been open probably in a week or so as well. We've got a long wait now. So be it. My Friedrichianum buds are now starting to look like buds. There's quite a lot of them lurking in various places up here. Certainly not going to be as many as last year, but it should be still a good show. That's probably 3 weeks away from the first one's opening, or a while anyway, so that's good. Right, so I shall get on and do my spraying, and then well, coming up to 3 o'clock I want to put the news on again and see what the VE Day celebrations are going to be doing at 3 o'clock. I missed the live red arrows fly past, but I saw it later, you know. So that's the thing with stuff nowadays. When a live item is on the news, it's going to be on the news every half hour, isn't it? So you don't really miss anything. Right, I will see you next time. I'm hoping that all 3 of these blooms are going to be out at the same time. That will be the first time I've had 3 Masdevallia blooms on a plant open together, and 2 of the buds are on the same spike, and I've never had that before. So those should be open in the not too distant future, I would think. And the buds on the Brassia seem to be looking more like buds every day now. They're starting to push on at a fair old rate. You can see the spike sticking up there. Those will be the long spidery bits when they do finally open. So yeah, it's going to have to go on the floor soon. That spike there is what, 2 inches from the roof? It's still growing, so I'll have to come down soon. I'm leaving it up here as long as I can, in the hope that by the time I need to put it on the floor, the Cymbidium can go outside. Oh, I'll have to go outside and bring a plant in, but I wanted to film something for, well, specifically for Insa, but you may be interested as well, so I'll be back in a bit. This is my native orchid. These can be found in the wild in this country and in other parts of Europe and things like that. It's not a single plant, it's actually several, and last year it's self-seeded. Now, I didn't expect these seedlings to come up this year, but I think some of them are weeds, but that is certainly a young plant, and so is that. So there's some seedlings managed to get hold, and I think that is as well. So we've got some seedlings in there. Now this is a variety of southern marsh orchid. I'll have to put a pop-up with the name because I can never remember the Latin names of our native orchids, because I don't have to. I like their common name. You know, it's a southern marsh orchid. It tells me all I need to know. It means it's found in the south of the UK, because there is a northern marsh orchid. I wonder where that one's found. And then it's got marsh in its name, so it tends to frequent damp areas almost bordering on boggy. So that's its, but it can be found in drier areas as well. But this is a variety that's known as the leopard marsh orchid because of the markings. They look like the spots and rings that leopards have got, and most southern marsh orchids that you find that are not this variety. Is that a snail? No, it's a slug. Right, we'll have that for disposal of in a minute. Yeah, so the normal leaves on this particular orchid are plain, so this is quite an unusual variety, and if it wasn't for the shape of the markings, it could be confused with an awful lot of other native orchids which do have spotty leaves. So yes, we'll leave it at that. This is going to have 1, 2, 3, 4 flower spikes, possibly 5 this year. Yeah, I think it'll be 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that'll have 5 flower spikes down the line. And I'll film it again when we've got spikes, but that's probably a little way off. Probably a month, I would say, before we see. About that tall, quite substantial, but tiny little blooms, but loads and loads and loads of them. So that's my only native orchid. That lives outside permanently. That would not live in here. It's too hot, and it wouldn't be right for it in the winter, because once they finish blooming, they die down, and they spend the winter underground with no parts showing above ground. And then in a very early spring they start to grow. They grow very quickly, they bloom, and then repeat the cycle. So I don't think it would survive, because they're not designed to be warm in winter. Yeah, so I doubt if it would grow in here. So there we go. That's my native orchid. Lovely patterning on those leaves.